So in today's session, I'll be discussing about what are all the different cluster types, few DButil commands, what a data frame is, and if we have time, we will be dealing with Spark architecture, creation of this data frame. So here, right, I'll be explaining you the coding, but how to perform the coding. It is very simple actually. It's just that you need to understand the syntax. That's it. So let me first open the portal, Azure Databricks Developer portal. So this is the one which we have created a few days back, right? Workspace. So let me first start the workspace, launch the workspace. So here, what is a cluster? Basically, cluster is nothing but set of computational resources where we run notebooks, jobs, and everything, right? And that is what a cluster is. Also, you can also call it as group of virtual machines or nodes, which will understand big data and try to execute that particular data. So coming to this cluster types, actually in yesterday's session we have seen cluster modes, but we have different kinds of clusters, different types of clusters. What are they? So the different kinds of clusters are, first one is all purpose cluster. First one, have different kinds of clusters. One is all purpose cluster, or else let me just do one thing. All purpose cluster we have, job cluster we have. Okay. Let's not waste more time. So let me just write it here. Okay. So what are the different cluster types we have? We have three different cluster types. One is all purpose cluster, and the other one is job cluster, and the third one is pool cluster. Okay. So mostly which is the cluster which we will be using to create? Yesterday we have created one cluster, right? The cluster category is all purpose cluster. Okay. So basically what does this all purpose cluster mean? So using this all purpose cluster, right? So here what happens? There will be multiple users in a project, right? So basically multiple users, once you create this particular cluster under this all purpose cluster category, once you create a cluster under this all purpose category, what will happen? Not only you, many users, multiple users can make use of this cluster. Okay. So yesterday I have shown you, right, like we have different workspaces. In another workspace there was a cluster which was available, which was already created, and in my workspace I have created one cluster, right? So if I want to make use of the cluster which was created in another workspace also, I can use it. How could I say that? So whenever I was trying to attach a particular cluster to my notebook, right, I could see what all are the different clusters available. That means clusters, whatever clusters you have created in whichever workspaces, right, you can basically make use of those particular clusters. Okay. So here what will happen? Multiple users, not only me, the person who created that cluster can use it, the person who is having access to that particular workspace can use it, or else the person who is having workspace to that portal, whoever is having access, right? So those people can also use that cluster. Okay. So if it is created in one workspace, if you are using in another workspace also, you can use it. So how could you say that? That is because we have a feature called as multiple users, right? We are multiple users. So basically multiple users can share this cluster to perform their analysis. Okay. So whatever code you're writing in your notebook, if you want to perform different analysis, different transformations and actions, right, you basically do that with the help of cluster. Once you attach a cluster to your notebook, you will execute it. Once you execute it, you will get the result, right? So obviously we will be implementing a code so that we get some response. So we will be working with some huge amounts of data, or whatever data it might be. We basically work with some particular data, and on that data we'll be performing our analysis and transformations. Okay. So when we are trying to do that, not only whatever cluster you have created, not only that, you can share the cluster, you can use the cluster which was created by someone else also. That means multiple users can share this cluster to perform their analysis. All right. So this is the only cluster wherein you will be able to manually restart the cluster, terminate the cluster, perform your editing or whatever. Okay. If you want to manually restart it, you can restart it. If you want to, if you see here, I have all purpose cluster, right? So let me just okay, so here yesterday I've told you, right? Like if you want to start it, you can start it. Once it is switched on, you can terminate it, you can restart it. So you have different kinds of options here. So for now, the cluster is terminated. It is not in active state. Okay, because I have stopped this cluster yesterday. So that is why this particular cluster has been terminated, is under terminated state. Okay, so this is the only cluster, all purpose cluster, which you will be able to create it. Okay, you can create it manually, you can restart it, refresh it, whatever you want to do, you can terminate it, whatever you want to do, you can apply that particular action on this particular all purpose cluster. Okay, so that is first cluster. What is the second kind of cluster? Second kind of cluster is a job cluster. So who will be creating this job cluster? Again, once again, what is a job? Basically, job is something like a trigger for a pipeline. How we create a trigger, like schedule trigger, tumbling window trigger we have, right? So for a job, right, job is something like a schedule only. In notebook, we will actually be scheduling a notebook. In there, right, we will be triggering a particular pipeline. So we have schedule trigger, tumbling window trigger, tumbling window trigger, tumbling window trigger, tumbling window trigger. So this is the job cluster. Okay, so this is the job cluster. So you will not manually create this particular cluster. All right, you will not create this cluster. So who is responsible for creating this cluster? It's not us. Because if it is your first wala cluster, all purpose cluster, you can manually create it and you can manually stop it, restart it, whatever you want, you can do. But coming to this job cluster, you will not be creating this job cluster. There will be a job scheduler who is responsible for creating this job cluster. Okay. So when will this job cluster create the job? Suppose if you have written a notebook, some code you have written, and for that particular notebook, right, you have implemented some code, and you want to run that particular code at a particular time. Okay, that is nothing but job schedule. Okay, there will be something. You just want to assign some schedule to that particular job. So at that point of time, once you create the job, right, automatically PySpark will have this in our Azure Databricks, right? We have something called as a job scheduler. So basically, that job scheduler internally will create this job cluster whenever. So basically, we have scheduled at a particular time, right? Like run at 9:30 a.m. every day. Bolke, you have just created a schedule for a notebook. 9:30 every day it should run. Okay, so what will happen? Correct, at the 9:30 a.m. only the job cluster will be created. Once the job is running, right, only then the job cluster create the job scheduler creates a job cluster. So once the job is completed, that particular job took 10 minutes to execute, that particular notebook took 10 minutes to execute. Okay, so the job time is suppose 10 minutes, so it will immediately terminate after that 9:30 to 9:40. In between this time only it will run. After that at 9:40 it will get terminated. All right. So whenever the job is started, this job class scheduler will create the job cluster. Whenever the job is completed, job cluster will terminate the job. Okay. You do not have any particular, it is not you who is doing it. It is a job scheduler who is creating that particular job cluster. Okay. So here, obviously, since we are not we are only creating the schedule. We are just giving the schedule for this notebook. That is nothing but a job only we are creating. Okay. So terminating it, restarting it is not under our control. It is under the control of a job cluster. All right. Hmm. ठीक है ना? You got this right? So after that, these two are the important cluster types which are actually we will be using. And we have something called as a pool cluster also. Pool cluster, we also call this as serverless cluster also. Okay. So pool cluster means what actually here? Here actually, this is set of idle ready to use instances. Okay. This is nothing but ready to, here we will be having few ready to use instances that will reduce the cluster start and auto scaling times. So let me write that here. Set of idle Okay, so basically pool cluster means what? Inside this pool cluster, right, like we will be having few instances. Okay, instances are nothing but few resources will be available. All right, so we have something called as in क्या बोलते हैं, in some particular storage, right, we will be having few ready to use instances. Once those are exhausted, right, we can make use of this pool cluster wale resources. Okay, so that means here instances are nothing but resources. So basically inside our pool cluster or serverless cluster, right, we will be having few ready to use instances. So whenever if you do not have any particular resources available, you can make use internally. What will your Databricks do? It will internally make use of the resources or else instances which are readily available. Okay, so using this, what will happen? Auto scaling we have already discussed, right? So using this, what will happen? We can reduce the start and auto scaling times. Okay, so so actually it will take a little time to start the cluster, right? So initially when you're starting it for the first time in today's session, so it will take at least 2 to 3 minutes of time. So only after that only you can just try to execute that particular notebook, right? So inside a cluster, what do we have? We have auto scaling feature we have, right? So once we enable that auto scaling feature, if you're getting some huge amounts of workload you're getting, okay, you have some huge amounts of data which needs to be transformed. So what we will be having internally, we have something called as a pool cluster. So this pool cluster will maintain few instances. Okay, it will actually maintain few resources. So whenever any particular workload or any particular notebook needs that, these are nothing but we will be having something in the back end. Okay, these will be present in the back end. So whenever there is any need, urgent need, right, so those resources will be taken from this particular pool cluster. Okay, so using this pool cluster, what will happen? It will reduce the start and auto scaling times. Auto scaling times means you are already aware of it. That means it is nothing but it is basically used to reduce or increase or decrease the worker nodes based on the workload. All right, so that is about your pool cluster. Pool cluster means what? Here actually we will be having few instances in the pool. So based on the cluster, right, based on the workload, it will automatically make use of those few pool wale resources. Okay, so why do you use that? To reduce the start and auto scaling times. Just remember this. But the most important things are this all purpose cluster and job cluster. After this, what do we have? Okay, so quickly let me go to my this particular Databricks. Yeah, so actually yesterday I was trying to execute it, but I couldn't execute it, right? So the issue is not with anything, it's just that the refreshing issue had happened. So I have closed it and opened it, and again I've started it. It worked for me. All right. So meanwhile, it will take a little time. So let me just tell you about Databricks DButil commands I've told you, right? So in our Databricks, right, we have different kinds of DButil wale commands. Okay, so if you just click on this dbutils dot help, right, you will be getting so many commands which are available. All right, so using those commands only, you can just if you want to move a particular file from one location to another location, if you want to remove a file, if you want to list contents of file, if you want to create a new directory, so now if you want to copy a file from one location to another location, whatever you want, you can do it using this dbutil commands. Okay, so it will take a little time, let it take. So meanwhile, I'll explain you about a data frame. So basically, what is a data frame? Even before data frame. Okay, no problem. So first we will start with this dbutil commands, and after that I'll tell you what a data frame is and how to create a data frame. After this, I'll tell you the Spark architecture. Okay, so once I execute any particular code inside our Databricks notebook, right? Internally we have what we have different languages. I've told you, right? So here internally we have something called as a Spark architecture. So once you execute a particular command, what will happen internally? How will the job get executed? executed? How will we have driver nodes and worker nodes in a cluster, so how will the work be distributed? So that entire architecture I'll explain you. So for that, let me just switch this cluster on. If this gets switched on, we can execute it. So it is taking time. Let me go to the workspace, users, commands. Notebook share button. Okay, if you see here, let me just quickly go here and see if it has been. Okay, till yesterday na we had a red colored symbol, right? So on a daily basis or on a weekly basis, something or the other change will happen to our be it data breaks or data factory or whatever service, right? There will be keep on upgrading, keep on performing few changes. So till yesterday we had this green color symbol. Now if you see here, it is having green color with a check mark in that, tick mark in that. Okay, let me open the command here. So yesterday when I tried to execute it, I was able to execute it. It's just that the issue was with the refreshing, so it couldn't happen. So that is why, actually that was the first time I have faced that issue, or else once the cluster is switched on, right, I never faced any issue. Okay, okay. Now so yesterday I have uploaded few files, right? I have uploaded 3 different files. So initially, to start with your Databricks file system, if you want to know what all are the files available in your Databricks file system, how can you do that? You can just give this percentile fs ls. Fs is file system, ls is listing. Okay, so let me just execute it. Execute, how can you execute it? You can just give shift enter. Shift enter will execute it. That is the shortcut. Or else if you want to execute it, you can go here and click on run. Okay, so this is the output which I have received. Okay, so after that, where did I store the file? If you remember, let me go back and see the file path. This is the file path. Okay, so let me just copy it and execute it. All right, so I have different kinds of files which are available, and inside this tables is one folder. Inside that tables folder, I have all these files available. Okay, so so if you see here, this is the path. These are the different kinds of files which are available, and those respective file names and the size. What is the file size for a particular file? For a particular file, this is the file name and this is the size. So if you want to go to that path or else to that directory, if you want to list all the files which are present inside your directory, you can just give like this. Or else if you're not aware of the path also, if you just specify percentile fsls, what will happen? Whatever directories are available, right, those will be displayed. Since I'm aware of, I have stored it inside this file store tables, right, I can directly give that particular directory as well. So if I give it, it will list me all the files. Clear? So that is the first thing which you'll have to remember. Now let us go to this dbutils.help. Okay, so if you see here, what all I have just given dbutils.help. Okay, you can just make a note of these commands. Okay, you can also use these particular commands. So initially under this dbutils.help, what all we have credentials. Fs I have told you, right? Fs I have just used it earlier. So dbutils.fs.help also will give you. So let me just show you that. Utils.fs.help. So what did it give me? It gave me few things. Okay, so if you want to have the documentation part, right, so inside this fs, what all I can do, I have something called as listing. Okay, so basically this is used to list whatever files are present in a directory, right? So those details it will basically basically list me. Okay, so here if you remember in the above, what have I given? Percentile FSLS, and then I have specified the path, right? This dir is nothing but the directory path I have given. So once I gave that path, what did it display me? It displayed me all the contents or the files which are present in a directory. Okay, so if you want to make use of it, if you want to understand this, right, so initially you can start with dbutils.help wala option, and after that, one after the other, you can just make use of it like this, dbutils.fs.help. Okay, so after that, what can you achieve here? Here you have different fs util wale commands. So what are the different commands which are present inside your fs utils? Under file system, what all commands you can make use of? You have something called as cp. Cp is nothing but a copy. So basically, from one location to another location, if you want to copy a file or a directory across file system, across this Databricks file system, you can do that using this cp wala option. Okay, so it's just that you will have to make use of the cp option here, and it will actually accept few parameters. So what are they? One is from location. From location means from which location you want to copy, and to location, from on to which location you want to copy. Okay, so that thing is available inside our copy. So if you want to copy file or directory across multiple file systems, across your file system, you can do that using this cp wala option. And after that, you have something called as head. Ls is basically to list the content of a directory. And in our C++, right, if you are an engineering grad in the first year, you used to use this mkdir, right? So there we had mkdir to create a new directory if the directory does not exist. Okay, so here we have mkdirs. S is additional here, so this one is available here in our PySpark, right? In our Spark, we have mkdirs. So inside this mkdirs, you will have to send directory. So whatever directory you want to create, right, it will be created if the directory is not existing. Okay. All right, if you want to move the file, copying is different and moving is different, right? Copying is something like it will create a replica, but moving will actually move the file. It will remove the file from one location and it will move the file onto the another location. Okay, so basically, moving is actually to move a file or a directory from one location to another location. Okay. After that, if you want to remove a directory, you can remove it. Okay, if you want to remove a file, you can remove it. All right, so once you have moved, if you feel like once you have copied, if you feel like you do not have to have that particular file in that location, you can just remove it. Okay, whatever you want, you can do it, be it on a directory or a file. Okay, na? Okay, so these are your fs util wale commands. And then what else we have? We have something called as mounting concept. And again, this mounting is an important concept. So I will explain you this mounting in the next sessions. Okay, let me just dbutil commands. Dbutil commands में you have these dbutil.fs.help, and then you have seen this fs utils also. Okay, this mounting, right? Mounting is again a vast concept. So here we will be mounting blob storage, data lake storage. So I'll be telling you when I deal with this mounting concept. Okay, so after that, this widgets is there, right? This widgets is also again a important concept which I will be telling in the future sessions. Okay, widgets means what? Actually, it is something like you have a drop down boxes, drop downs, we have multi select, we have text to boxes, we have. Okay, so this is nothing but the inputs. Okay, if you want to pass input to your notebook, what you will do? You will make use of this widgets wala concept. Okay, so just to go through these different dbutil commands. So in that, mostly we will be using this fs wala command, and then we will be using this widgets wale command. Okay, these we will be using it mostly. So let me just scroll down and see what else I have here. Secrets. credentials. So here actually I've tried with this credentials also, but then for that particular notebook, right, if there are any credentials available, if there are any roles which are assigned, if there are any roles, if there are multiple roles, if you want to list those roles, you can just click on the show current role. If you have any list of roles, right, you can just make use of the show roles wala option. Okay, if you want to assign a role, you can just assign it. Okay, since there are no roles available, right, so that is why I couldn't get any role here. But if there are any roles already assigned to your notebook, you can just get those. And something like secrets also. So you have this dbutils.secrets.help, right? So using the secrets.help, what can be achieved? So suppose you have stored some secret at a particular scope. Okay, so suppose there was already a scope which was created, and inside that scope, right, we are having few passwords or secrets, something we are having. So if you want to get that particular scope, you can make use of this get option here. Okay, if you want to list what all scopes are available, so you can also get that. So here you'll have to just specify that particular thing, list scopes. These will be coming in sequence. Okay, if there are anything actually created, only you will be getting, but here we have not created anything, so we do not have those options. So just go through this dbutils wale commands. All right, so you will be having the documentation part, so you can just use that, and then something like this, dbutils dot widgets dot help. This will give you what all widgets are available, right? So these all I'll be telling you in the next session. All right, so here, right, you will be having different kinds of widgets available, so those all you can work with. After that, so again you have this is how you can actually make use of each and every dbutil command, and you can just execute it and see what all are the different kinds of commands which are available. Okay, so if you are running a particular notebook and if you want to exit it, you can make use of this exit one option, or else if you want to run a notebook inside another notebook, you can also make use of this. But this will be a session for another day, do not worry about that. So for now, just understand that if you click on this dbutils.help, you will be getting different dbutil commands. So just go through these commands, just have an overview of it. Okay, and then the important one is this one, fsls percentile fsls, and then this particular file. All right, so here let me just read this. So this will only give me that particular file. Okay, so where do I have this particular file? I have it inside my file store, Databricks file system. Inside that I have file store, tables, and inside that this is the table. This is the file name. Okay. Okay, so what? Okay, so here, right, I will tell you what a data frame is. So for that, right, let me just write a simple syntax. Okay, even before telling you what a Databricks is, I'll write a simple syntax. So you have a file. I have a file which is an employee.csv file. Okay, I have this employee.csv file, and if I want to read the data which is present inside that particular file, how can I read that? I have some syntax called as path.read.csv, and then I will just have to specify the file path. Okay, so what is the file path here? This one, /emp.csv. This is the file path, right? So if you want to read this particular path, what you can do, you will have to assign it to a data frame. Do not worry, I'll tell you what a data frame is. Okay, so if you see here, what are you this is the file, right? So employee.csv file, which kind of data is having inside your employee.csv file? I have this data: employee id, name, gender, salary, department id, department name, department id. So I have these many number of columns. I actually have 7 different columns here. And then what is the data which is present inside my inside that particular employee.csv file? I have 6 rows. Okay, so these are the different data which is available. So this is the data which is available. Okay, so that means I have specified something as a df, right? Df means what? Df is a data frame. Let me write it here. Df means what? Here df is nothing but a data frame. So I will explain you now what a data frame is. Data frame. Data frame means what? Actually, you can actually correlate this data frame with a relational database table. Okay, correlate data frame with relational database table, wherein you will be having columns, and inside the columns the data will be organized. Okay, so a data frame is nothing but it is similar to, you can correlate a data frame with a relational database table where you have data organized in columns. Okay na? So this is what your data frame is. So now you can, if you go here and see now, you will understand what a data frame is. So your data frame is nothing but you can actually correlate it with the database table. How will a database table will be? It'll have some columns, and inside the columns the data will be present, right? So we will be having columns and rows. So your data frame is nothing but it is a relational database table wherein you will be having columns on which, under which the data will be organized. Okay, is it clear? Were you able to understand this data frame wala concept? Data frame means nothing, it is just a table only. Inside the table what we'll be having? We'll be having rows and columns, right? So inside the columns the data will be organized. That's it. Understood data frame?
Yes, ma'am.
And in, but
Okay.
here in serial number it's showing different, I mean, it's not showing in a serial order, right? 1 2 3 4.
Which one? This
Just open this commands Databricks one. Output. Yeah, here in employee ID you can see 1 3 4 2 5 6. It's not in the
that
sequel
is,
order.
no, so the file, it is just reading the file. In the file it
Hmm.
is in this format only.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's it. Hmm.
And we can't
It will
change
not
this one.
perform anything.
Okay,
So
it's only for
however the
reading.
file is, it will read that file only, right? So here I'm
Okay.
not performing any kind of transformations. I'm just trying to read the file. So
Okay.
so how do you read a file? This is the syntax for it. Spark.read.csv. So this is the format to read a particular file. So if you read this, right, spark.read.csv, and you'll just specify the file path where the file is. So this is the file path, and once I read it, right, Ma, door dala. So how can you read it? So I'm reading it, I'm assigning it to a data frame. Again, in the simple data frame df, I have just specified some df as some data frame, but you can just give any name to this particular data frame. Okay, data frame df underscore emp or whatever you want, you can just specify. But for understanding purpose, I have just given as df. So
Okay.
inside this single df wala word, right, what do I have? This is nothing but a data frame. So inside this data frame I have the entire emp.csv file, employee file, entire csv file. I have it inside a single df wala data frame. Okay, so when I try to display it, how can you display it? You have an option called as df.show. That means this data frame dot show. If you are just trying to give this data frame dot show, so once you give this only, you will be able to get this kind of data. Okay, because you are trying to display it only, then you will actually get the data. So if you just do it till here, and if you do not display it, right, you will not be getting this information, you will not be getting. Okay, unless until you don't print it, the option, the output will not be displayed, right? So similarly here also, unless until you do not show it or display it, the data will not be displayed. All right.
Okay,
So
fine.
this
Thank
is your first initial data frame. And if you observe here, what is it? It is a CSV file. One minute. All right. So here what all I have. So since it as it is a CSV file, we will be having a header, right? So this is just a basic syntax. Okay, spark.read.csv, and here I have just specified the path, and I am only reading that particular file. Here what are you getting? You're not getting that appropriate. This thing is there, right? This employee ID, employee name, these all. It is actually considering it as a data only. It is actually not understanding if this is data or else header. So you will have to explicitly specify that this is a CSV file, and you will have to ignore the first row, which is header. Okay, first row will actually be header. So you will have to ignore that. So since it doesn't understand, right, unless until we explicitly specify, it doesn't understand. So that is why what did it take? It took something like C0, C1, C2, like it had taken for a pipeline, right? When you're trying to read a CSV file in a pipeline, and once you did not check that first row as header option, you got something like this only, right? Column 0, column 1, like something like prop 0, prop 1, prop 2, like that. So here we got something like C0, C1, C2, like that. So you do not want this to be like that, because seeing at it, we will not understand, right? Since our first row is a header, we will have to make use of that particular option. So how can you do that? So here क्या है शो Okay, so basically if you see here previously I had C0, C1, C2, those things I had. So here, right, once I had specified this option as header as true, right? So actually this should be in quotes, only then it will consider it. All right, so here I have created a new data frame, which is df underscore employee data frame. This is actually having my employee related information. So if you want to have this employee ID, this entire thing as a header in the, and if you do not want this to be inside your data part, right, you can just give option header of true. So once you do this, what will happen, and once you display it, this is how it will be displayed. So we have multiple options to display. So one is df dot show, and the other one is display of this. Okay, so actually display of that data frame will give you the exact appropriate the look and feel will be very nice actually. If you see here, this is, you can easily understand, right? There are no dotted dash those dotted lines are not available directly. You have something like an Excel sheet or a table. Okay, so this is a data frame wherein you have columns, and inside the columns data has been organized. Okay, na? You understood, right? So this is the syntax. If you do not want your header to be inside your data, if you want your header to be true, you can just specify this option of header as true, and you can just directly load the path. Okay, if you load the path and if you display it, this is how it will be displayed. Is it clear, guys? So we have simple syntaxes only. It's just that you will have to have an idea of that syntaxes, or else in Google also those syntaxes will be available. Okay, na? Do not worry about the syntax. It is very easy actually. So once I start with more and more coding, right, there will be a few more syntaxes we will be getting. So what I would suggest is, whenever I try to perform any kind of this coding part, right, just try to make a note of that and then implement it in your Databricks workspace. Okay, in your Databricks notebook, and execute and see. If you have any errors, right, you can just revert to me. Okay, so this is your data frame. All right, so now you are aware of what a data frame is. Now it is the right time to explain you about this Spark wala architecture. Okay, so you have what I have told you. You have Spark architecture I have told you, right? So let me open the PPT. Okay, so if you see here, inside a cluster, what all we have driver nodes and worker nodes, right? We have driver nodes and worker nodes. So basically, once you implement this particular code, okay, so once you have written this particular code in your notebook, internally what will happen, that is nothing but your Spark related architecture. Okay, so internally there will be a Spark, right, which will be executing this particular interface, this particular whatever data is there. It will actually execute that particular code and it will display you the information. So internally what is happening, I'll tell you. So once you write any particular code and once you click on execute, internally what will happen means, you will be having a cluster, right? So there will be a cluster manager. So inside that cluster manager or the cluster, you have driver nodes and worker nodes, correct? So you have driver nodes and driver nodes and worker nodes. So inside the driver node, we have something called as a Spark context. So Spark context is the entry point to execute your code, whatever code you're writing, right? So that particular code, if you want to execute it, this Spark context is the entry point. All right, so now your cluster has been switched on, and after executing it, right, internally the cluster manager will give it to the driver program. Okay, so inside the driver nodes, we will be having driver nodes and worker nodes, two driver nodes and multiple worker nodes, or else one driver node and multiple worker nodes we might be having, right, based on the cluster configuration. So based on the workload, right, what will happen, your cluster manager will have the resources. Here resources are nothing but nodes or instances. Okay, so based on the driver nodes and the worker nodes, actually what will the driver program do? I have told you, right, like driver program will not perform any work. It will just delegate the task to the worker nodes. So it will actually collect the code, and from there, right, it will collect the data. And based on that, if we have different kinds of transformations, right, different kinds of filtering, sorting, merging, or whatever we have. So basically this driver program, right, based on the workload, it will distribute the work. It will delegate the work to its worker nodes. So here we only have two worker nodes, but assume if we have 8 different worker nodes. So your driver program will actually delegate the task to your worker node. So worker node is what? It is actually responsible for performing the work, correct? This is the one which will actually do the work. So this worker node, inside this worker node, inside each and every worker node, it has something called as an executor and a cache. Cache is nothing but it is a memory. Okay, this is nothing but your memory. So every worker node is having some memory allotted, right? Some memories are available, some core is available, right? So every worker node will be assigned to some cache. So that cache, right, internally it will be having some memory and few cores which are already allocated to that particular cache of a worker node. So here we have something called as an executor. So executor is the one actually which will contain the task, and it will actually perform that particular task. Okay, so if you are trying to perform any filtering or executing or displaying or anything, right, that particular worker node will be responsible. It has something called as an executor. Inside that executor only, it will actually do the work. Okay, so similarly, we have not only one different worker nodes, we have 10 different, imagine we have 8 different worker nodes. So whatever piece of code has been given to this worker node, right, it will be given to the executor, and that executor will actually perform the task which was given to it. So once it performs the task, what will happen? So sometimes it needs, we have 8 different worker nodes, right? Sometimes these 8 different worker nodes will work in sync. Okay, so if this particular worker nodes need information from the first worker node, it will take it. Okay, internally they will be communicating with each other, and finally once their task is finished, right, it will give the data to the driver program. Okay, so each and every worker node will give the data to the driver program, and here our driver program is actually responsible. It is the one which is responsible for displaying the output. So if you, I have told you, right, like this driver program is, it will just manage the state information of a particular notebook or a command book. Okay, so if you see here, you are able to see the output, right? So how are you able to see the output here? That is because your driver program is actually responsible for displaying the output. Okay, actual work will be done by your worker nodes. Whatever task it has been assigned, right, it will perform the task and give that task, give that output to your driver program. This driver program will collect the output from all the different worker nodes, and it will manage the state information. Managing state information means what? It is nothing but it will actually display the output. Okay, is it clear? You have understood, right? So internally this is what happens when you click on shift enter, or when you run a particular command. When I run this particular command, it is very fast. Okay, PySpark is actually very fast. So since because of its performance only, it is 100 times faster. Okay, compared to any other IDE, right? Any other IDE, this PySpark is very fast. Normal, this Spark is very fast. So that is why you can perform, if you want to improve your performance, you basically go with this Spark Databricks related scenarios. Okay, this is actually optimal when you are dealing with huge amounts of data. So when you're dealing with huge amounts of data only, you need to improve the performance on and all, right? So it will actually improve the performance when you're making use of this PySpark. Okay, Spark architecture. So it is clear, right? You are able to understand the Spark architecture. What will happen internally when you click on the shift enter, right? Understood, guys?
Yeah, ma'am.
Okay, so that is about your Spark architecture, and then we have different features for this particular PySpark, right? We have different kinds of features. So let me tell you the features which are available. So actually, we have something called as distributed processing. Okay, that is nothing but parallelizing. So again, this parallelize is there, right? This will come inside our RDDs. I'll tell you in the future session what an RDD is. So parallelizing is nothing but parallelize is one of the method which is present inside our RDD. Again, RDD means what? RDD is similar to a data frame only, but this is having few more features which are available. Okay, on a whole, PySpark features are what? Actually, PySpark is fault tolerant. It has distributed parallel processing, in-memory computation, lazy evaluation, inbuilt optimization, cache and persisting, and immutable. So these all are the different kinds of PySpark features. So out of this, I'll try to tell you few things. Okay. So and the remaining things, right, we will discuss it when we are dealing with our RDDs. Okay. RDD is also something like a data frame only. So here you are just actually in our RDD, right? We have few more actions and transformations which you can make use of, and you can execute your code. All right. So in memory computation. So in our cluster, right, we will be having driver nodes, worker nodes. Inside that we have memory, right? So for every particular node, we have some memory which is allotted. Some GB of memory is available, and then some codes are available, right? So because of that only, because it is one of the PySpark feature only, in memory computation, like within the memory itself, it will compute it and it will give you the result very fast. Okay, so it is about in memory computation. And then you have something called as a lazy evaluation. Lazy evaluation is a concept here. So unless until there is no action, right? So if you are so if you see here, so this is also one of the lazy evaluation. Why is that? Because if you just assume that I do not have this df.show or display, so unless until there is no action, Okay, unless until there is no action, your particular RDD or data frame, right, it will not get executed. Okay, so if you have any action only, it will be implemented. That means it follows lazy evaluation wala concept. Okay, if I tell you a few more topics, right, you will understand it, but for now just understand that lazy evaluation means what? Unless until there is no action, unless until there is no action, your RDD or your PySpark will not get executed. Why is that? Because it feels like why should I execute it? Why should I evaluate it when I do not have any kind of action to perform? Okay, so that is why when you just click on this and execute it, right, when you just use this and when you do not use this, right, you will not get any output. Okay, so if you have this action, this display is one action, show is one action, right, you are trying to print it. Printing is nothing but you are trying to perform some action. So if you have any action only, that particular command will get executed and it will display you the output. If you do not have this now, then that particular result will not be displayed, right, obviously. So that is because it follows lazy evaluation wala feature. Okay, and then you have fault tolerant. Fault tolerant means what? Suppose you are trying to deal with suppose if you feel like you are actually executing a particular scenario, and at a point of time what will happen due to some connection breakage issue or something had happened, and then you are facing few errors and you are not able to go ahead from there. Okay, you are not able to go ahead from there. So we have this fault tolerant option. So using this fault tolerant option, what will happen if there are any incompatible rows, or if there are any errors in a particular file or anything, right? So it will be reverted from that particular point itself. Okay, suppose at fifth position you are facing some issues. Okay, at fifth position you are facing some issues, and because of that issue you are not able to move forward. There might be some cluster related issues, or any it could be any of the error. Okay, so fault tolerance means what? So from wherever you have lost the data, right, it your PySpark will actually have the feature to revert to that particular failure, and from there it will start executing. Okay, that is about your fault tolerance wala option. Cache and persisting cache is what? So if you want to execute any particular thing in memory, so if you want to achieve faster performance, right, so few of the variables which will be random, which will be used throughout the particular notebook or commands, so few things will be there at few data frames or something which you frequently use it. So those things will actually be stored in your cache and persistence. Why is that? Because to improve the performance. Okay, and then you have something called as distributed parallel processing. So in our PySpark, what will happen? We have different nodes, right? So one after the other, one after the other. It will not go in sequence, but to improve the performance, what we have to improve the performance, all the nodes will be executed in parallel. Okay, if we execute the nodes in parallel, what will happen? It will optimize the performance. Okay, like that we have few features are available for PySpark. Okay. So that is one thing I want to cover. And I have something else, like I have told you, right, like there will be a pricing tier for Azure Databricks. Okay, so actually Databricks will deal with what? Databricks units. So per hour, what, how many ever Databricks units you are using per hour, for that you will actually be charged, right? So here you have all purpose cluster, job cluster. Okay, so we have different kinds of workload. So based on the workload and based on the cluster you are using, and based on the tier which you are using, right? So you had standard tier, premium tier, I have told you, right? So for the standard tier is actually it will take a minimum cost. So there will be some default cost which is this much. So when you choose that standard tier, this much amount of per hour, this much amount will be charged. This is in rupees. Again, for premium, obviously it will be having some additional memory and additional features will be available, right, rather than your standard tier. So that is why obviously the cost will be more here. So similarly we have a job compute, job light compute. So these are nothing but different kinds of workload. So based on the workload and based on the tier you are choosing, based on that you will be charged. Okay, so I'm not performing any task today, so I'll just stop this cluster. So remember, once you are done with your job, you just come here and then terminate this cluster. Okay, that is very important. If you do not do that, what will happen? That particular cluster will be running in the background and it will eat away your credits. Okay, so is it clear, guys? Were you able to understand today's session? So in tomorrow's session, right, I will tell you this Spark creation of data frames. Okay. And then from there we will start the coding part. So till here it was a little theoretical part. So from today it will be completely practical. Okay. Got it, guys? Were you able to understand today's session? Okay. Then let's connect in tomorrow's session and we will discuss a few more things. Okay.